Can you sing? Okay. Are we all close to starting the show? Wow, we can start the show. Okay. Anyway, people, okay, look at camera 2. That's the one in the middle. Remember I mentioned that earlier? Yeah. It's got the red light. Everyone, these are my nephews. I'm not going to mention their names so you can't Google them. But they're visiting from Nebraska, where they don't have television. At least not 24 hours a day. Like in Nebraska, there are still television stations that play that little video PSA with the, national anthem every night after Dave. And then, like 4:30 in the morning, they come back on and talk about what you can sell hogs for. These are my nephews. Wave at the camera, nephews. Or don't. I don't care. Okay, now go back to your seats. Go back to your seats. Okay? Everyone applaud for the nephews. They're visiting. I promised them I'd get them on TV and famous. And now that I've mentioned that I have my nephews on TV and they're kind of a captive audience, I'm going to mention that my first topic tonight is the birds and the bees, which is just going to annoy the bejesus out of their mother, who is also in the audience tonight. I think she's in like the $26 seats, because I'd already comped all the good $70 seats, and so I had to put the relatives in the bad seats, except for the nephews. I got them in the front row because they were on TV. So we were able to evict Madonna and A-Rod, who only come like half the time. And they never RSVP. Like, I'd be like, hey, Madonna and A-Rod, you want to come be at the show? And she's all like, I would love to, in that British accent, like the Queen. She's from Detroit, for God's sakes. Where did she... I'm getting ahead of myself. Birds and the bees. Now, before I talked about the birds and the bees, I wanted to make sure I got this right, because as I said, they're from Nebraska, and so they're... It's not like they're learning this in school there. Bees are a social insect. They're kind of in the same family as termites and ants, and they form colonies which cooperate in order, for the greater good of the colony. And bees pollinate a lot. That's probably what you've heard of. Mostly people think about bees because they think bees sting them. But most bees don't sting people, except the killer bees from Mexico, which I think is what's getting the Republicans all riled up, because they're like illegal immigrant bees. Or I don't quite understand, but they fly over the border without papers. Because they're bees and they're very small. I mean, they really can't carry papers. But bees, social insects, right, with the pollinating. I read something, they were like, if the bees disappeared, mankind would collapse. And I'm like, bees aren't our biggest problem. We've found lots of things we can do to this planet that'll screw it up. I think the bees will manage to make it until we've destroyed ourselves. And then they'll take over, because they've got a queen. Which is something, I guess, and they're massively, social, and after we're gone, I think they'll just move into our auto plants and start building very tiny cars, is my thought. That's the bees, Wikipedia, bees, only 7 pages, and I was like, well, that's not a lot to learn, and then I thought, birds. Wikipedia, birds, 32 pages on birds. I'm like, what can you say about birds? They're tiny dinosaurs with feathers, I think. And then I went to the Wikipedia, and they're like, yeah, birds are tiny dinosaurs with feathers. And I'm like, I'm a genius. I'm a frickin' bird genius. Because I remember, when I was really little, first of all, I don't know what it is with dinosaurs, but there are, kids that are just totally into dinosaurs. And we had this kid in Sunday school that, knew the names of all the dinosaurs, and it was, 2nd grade. And, I was having trouble with my name, which has 5 letters, and he could spell Triceratops. And he would talk about how Triceratops was a dinosaur, and then just the other night, I'm watching TV, and I learned Triceratops is not a dinosaur anymore. They're like, we've taken Triceratops away, it's just a different dinosaur. It's just, when that dinosaur was tiny, it had horns, and we thought it was Triceratops, but we've discovered it's not, it's just like Troopterus or something. I'm like, well, if I could go back to 2nd grade Sunday school, I would look that little kid in the face and go, "Ha!" Because he was constantly talking about the dinosaurs and making me feel bad. Birds, they're tiny or they're big. Albatross, quite a large bird, flies around, appears in Monty Python skits, are the 2 facts I know about albatrosses. I guess sailors like albatrosses. I don't know why. And then there's that poem where someone ties an albatross around someone's neck, which didn't make a darn bit of sense to me then and still doesn't. At home, we have a bird feeder. And at our bird feeder, we get a lot of birds. So I have a passing knowledge of them, or at least of the 4 species we get in my backyard, which are the tiny ones, the other tiny ones. Then we get ones that I used to call pigeons until Loretta said, "Those are doves." And then I said, "What's the difference?" And she said, "PR." Which is pretty much doves. Doves are nice. Everyone likes them. They show up at weddings. And pigeons poop on statues, and no one likes them. And then occasionally we get this other kind of bird, which none of us know what it is, but it's different from the 2 tiny ones because it's big, but it's not a dove. And once we had a hawk in our backyard. We looked out in our backyard and there's like a raptor hawk on the ground, and we were like, wow. Never saw it again. So my assumption is there's no hawk food anywhere near my backyard. The hawk showed up once, took a look around, went, "Yeah, nothing here," and then he left. I guess we also have a little bat house in our backyard, but we don't have any bats in it. And I don't know how to get bats in it. I've thought of putting something on Craigslist, but we would just get creepy people emailing me for God knows what. You don't know what bat is code for in the underground, but it's disturbing. If I go to urbandictionary.com, there's going to be something creepy with bat. And if you wait 10 minutes and go to Wikipedia, there'll be something creepy on the bat page. That's right. And speaking of Wikipedia, I mentioned I went to Wikipedia and read about birds. And remember I said 32 pages for the bird article, and so I thought, good Lord, I'm going to have to read a lot of stuff about birds. And then I started flipping, and then I realized, here we go, here's the bird article. See, look, first page. Look, I printed it small because I love trees, and so I didn't want to kill a lot of them. So first page, birds, there's some pictures, good. Second page, birds, there's some pictures. There's a little chart about where birds come from, and then there's a little diagram. Has like an arrow that says claw, and beak, and bird. Third page, more pictures. There's a parrot, I'm going to assume. Fourth page, more pictures and pictures of eggs. So birds come from eggs. We've resolved that one. Birds came first because eggs aren't until like the 11th page. Okay, there's more pages. Okay, and then look at this. References, references, references. Okay, there are 11 pages of references at the bottom of the birds article, which is 32 pages long. Okay, we get it, Wikipedia. You're trying to sound authoritative, okay? But you're not Encyclopedia Britannica. You don't need 11 pages of references for the bottom of the birds article. You should just get to the bottom and say, it's probably true. Because 11, we're just killing, people think all this stuff about birds is true, and I don't think it is, because I could have taken most of these pictures, and the eggs picture I could have totally done in Photoshop. So, anyway, Wikipedia, birds and the bees, did it for my nephews. Time to start the show. I had kind of a long list of topics for tonight's show, and then I lost it. Because I wrote it on a piece of paper, and then I lost the piece of paper. And I thought, well, now the show's going to suck. And then I thought, well, it doesn't really matter whether I lost a piece of paper. It's going to suck either way. So I guess I'll start here. Here's a couple. I got me a brand spanking new iPhone 4 today. And I'm not going to use it during the show. I got a lot of comments about the iPad show where people said, Keith, that iPad show sucked. And I'm like, yes, I know. I was there. And they're like, well, no, we think it sucked for different reasons, and you probably think it sucked. And I'm like, really? And they're like, well, we think it sucked because you kept looking at the iPad. And I'm like, my eyes were freakily drawn to it. It's magical. Have you seen one? And people are like, but on TV, it's not magical when you could just see the back of it. So sorry about that. I mentioned the iPhone because if you own a TV, which I assume you do since you're watching this on TV, unless you watch it on the internet, in which case, go away for a minute and a half, because that's all the longer it's going to take you to get through this. Well, here. If you're watching this on the internet, go to apple.com and then click on the little commercials link, and then look at the iPhone FaceTime commercials. And there are like 4 of them, and they're like 20 or 30 seconds long each. And so then you will have seen them, and then you can come back to this podcast and start watching from here again, and then you'll know what the heck I'm talking about. Apple has these iPhone commercials where they're like, we're showing FaceTime, and then they're like, you know, oh, look, I got my hair cut. I feel bad. It feels stupid. I don't want to show you. No, your hair looks beautiful, dear. Blah, 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 okay? You know, and there's the, oh, whatever. And there's this one that just bugs bejesus out of me because this woman comes on and she's like, you know that little project we've been working on? And the guy's like, uh-huh. And he's trying to think of projects, right? Because he's like, what did I forget to do at home now that she's calling me at work to bother me about? Because that's just what it always seems to be. You're at work, you're in a groove, and then someone calls you and bugs you. And then she's like, it's that little project, and then she, you know, the little eyebrows arching, and the guy's like, oh, you mean the one where we keep doing the thing, the dirty. I got my nephews here, so I can't go into it, okay? But you people at home, go watch the commercial if you haven't seen it. You'll know what they're talking about. And I'm like, well, that's kind of a tiny bit aggressive. I agree, it's no, you know, Paris Hilton grinding your body against a Porsche while eating a hamburger, but it's still a little bit out there. And I'm like, well, what other kinds of commercials could we do? Or, you know, what if we'd hire different actors for that? You know, like, hi, you know that little project we've been working on? And then the voice at the other end would go, is the body nearly dissolved? Okay? See, there's so many other things you can say after, you know, that little project we've been working on. They actually believe I'm their mother. Okay? Yeah. Talk about Apple. As you know, I work at Apple. It's the coolest job in the world. And we're actually hiring. So if you want to work there, like, go and apply. I can't help you at all because I'm a drone in a building and have no hiring power whatsoever. So don't try and worm your way into Apple through me, even though getting people you know to recommend you, I'm told, is the best way to get a job. But trust me, if I recommend you for a job it's not a negative necessarily, but it's probably not a big positive. Especially if the only way I know you is that you watch my TV show. So I'm walking into work this morning, and there's this big semi-truck in front of my building, and there's this car being driven into the semi-truck, and I think, well, this is a tad unusual. But the really unusual thing is that there were like 10 people watching this car drive into this semi-truck. So I thought I should stop and watch too, because who knows what's going on. Then I looked in the car, it looked kind of sleek. And so I turned to the woman next to me, I said, what's going on? And she said, that's an electric BMW. And I'm like, yeah, okay. She's like, it's worth like $1.5 million. And I'm like, yeah, okay. It's kind of a little expensive for a car, but okay. She's like, it's made of glass. I'm like, really? Like the whole car? She's like, no, just the outside. I'm like, well, okay. Doesn't seem like the greatest building material. I mean, I agree. Cars have windows. The windows are made of glass, but I wouldn't make the rest of the car out of glass because it seems to me that's one of them things that's just going to end badly. When the guy in the parking lot opens his door a little harder than he should have opened his door. And then I went into work, and then I realized later, I'm like, that was $1.5 million car. First of all, cars shouldn't cost $1.5 million, but the fact that there was $1.5 million car in front of my building, and I was just like, that looks kind of nice. It's electric, it's really quiet. Yeah, whatever. I'm like, we have lots of things at Apple that if you took me back 20 years would just astound the bejesus out of me. Like the $1.5 million electric BMW made entirely of glass or something. We have coffee machines that make coffee for you. And not like the boring kind that everyone has, you know, where you got to fill it up with water and then you dump it in the back and then you put the coffee in the filter thingy and then you push it in, then you push the button, okay, then you wait, and after a while the coffee dribbles through and you got coffee. No, like if I'm at work and I want a cup of coffee, I take my cup and I walk around to the little coffee room and I put my cup down and I go, I would like a cup of coffee, please. And then it makes a cup of coffee for me. Like it goes, you can hear it grinding, then you can hear it brewing, and you can hear it dispensing, and then you can hear it telling me to get back to work. It's just fascinating that there are machines that make... We have a vending machine at work that doesn't take money. I know! They're like, yeah, we put in new vending machines for you all. And I was like, yeah, whatever. They're like, they're located by LaRue's office. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I know where LaRue's office is. And they're like, enjoy. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. And then later I'm walking by them and there's a crowd in front of the vending machine. And so I think, okay, I don't know why there's a crowd in front of a vending machine. I've seen vending machines since I was a child. I know how they work. But I stopped and then they were like, I would like that candy bar. Then they'd punch the candy bar button in and then one thing would come out. And you'd go, you didn't put money in. I'm like, wow, that's amazing. It's a vending machine that doesn't take money. I wonder why they didn't invent these long ago. Because it doesn't need... And then after a while I was thinking, well, this is technically the same as just a table with a pile of candy bars on it. Right? We don't need the vending machine part of this process, right? Apple could have just said, we decided to go to Costco and buy you guys candy bars so that you'll work harder and get fat and be unable to leave and go home. And so we have a bunch of those case-sized boxes of candy bars. Just stop by and pick up whatever you like. I realize now I sound kind of, you know, not thankful. But truthfully, I'm not thankful because before, if I was in my office and I was like, I would like a candy bar, I could then say, but candy makes me fat and plus it costs $1.25. Now I can only say candy makes me fat because now it's free. And candy makes me fat is not a good counter to it's free. See, it makes me fat is apparently worth about $1.50 to me. So they have slid things in under that total. On the same thing, we have an ice cream machine at work. It still costs money, which is why I'm able to avoid it. But we have an ice cream machine at work that has a vacuum so that when you're like, I would like an ice cream sandwich. And normally, like in the old days when I was young, there'd be like a little lever and you'd open a door and you'd reach in and pull out your ice cream sandwich. Now there's a big window and you say, I would like an ice cream. I forgot to take off my welding goggles. Y'all must be wondering what these are for. Anyway, so I'm there, like I want an ice cream sandwich. And I go like a C5, okay? And then inside this box, there's a freezer, which you can tell, well, first of all, there's ice cream in there, so you know there's some kind of freezer. But there's like a big chest freezer, and like a little lever opens the top of the freezer, and then this arm with a suction thing on the bottom goes over and drops down, and then you hear a vacuum go, and then it sucks onto an ice cream thing, and then it lifts it up, and it shakes it a little bit just to taunt it, and just like, look, I got ice cream for you, ice cream for you. No, maybe it's going to fall, maybe it's going to fall. But it doesn't, and then it pulls it forward and drops it. And then you're like, I got ice cream. It's the greatest thing in the world. Well, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but it is kind of cool. Like, I don't think it used to be if you went to work and you forgot your badge, you were kind of like, oh, great, now how am I going to pay for lunch? And then after a while, the people in the cafeteria were like, you can just pay tomorrow. And I was like, well, that's nice. And then the next day I'd come in and be like, I owe you $6 from yesterday. And they were fine. Now they're like, well, we put in this thing you can just pay with your badge. So I can forget my wallet for weeks. Like I go into work and then they're like, here's lunch. And then you just wave your badge over this little thing, and they're like, yeah, okay. And then they take it out of your paycheck. It's like we don't need cash anymore. And for God knows, I hope they're taken out of the right paycheck, because I don't know how to check anymore. So if I wrote the wrong employee number down or whatever when I registered, someone else is paying for my lunch, is my point. See, there's the BMW at Apple. Here's, I got a long list of things that other people have been emailing in and asking about, and they're kind of really, they're pestering me about these now. So I finally decided to answer them, even though they're dumb. So you might want to skip ahead. If this starts to drag, just skip ahead, okay? John asks, why do they blur license plates on TV? And I'm like, I have no idea why they blur license plates. I know why they blur telephone numbers. Like if you're out on a shot or something and in the background there's like a sign with a telephone number, they'll blur the telephone number out. And that's because when people watch TV and they see a telephone number, they think, I could call that telephone number and bother them. And so the people that do TV programs figured after a while that no one would let them tape in front of their stores if they knew that every time they taped there, they were going to get a bunch of prank calls. So they blur the telephone numbers. Or like if you're watching a reality show with a woman that has like 19 children and her no-account idiot husband, and he's wearing like a sweatshirt from a particular designer, has that designer's name in big letters, they will blur those big letters out because they don't want to give that guy free advertising on their train disaster of a TV show unless that guy actually pays for commercial time. It's the same reason that occasionally, like if you see me here and I'm using a computer, they put a big black piece of tape over a very, very special part of the computer, and you're like, why is there? Oh, that's where the logo is. I wonder what computer it is that has the logo exactly there and white. Well, good thing I don't know, and good thing that tape didn't draw my eye to that exact spot and make me think, what computer could they have possibly obscured the logo of? Someone said, what's up with all the new pennies and the different designs? Here's the thing, there are no new pennies, okay? If you're seeing new pennies, someone is counterfeiting. There are new nickels, and there are new quarters, and they have those because there are people that collect coins. I, for example, have a complete set of all the quarters. And since there, I think they just quarter for every state. So there are 50 states. I have 50 quarters at home. That's got to be almost $400. I'm not good at math. Maybe 12 and a half. So I essentially have, $6 worth of quarters on my wall that I'm never going to spend. And the Mint loves this because it costs them less than a quarter to make a quarter, so they made money selling me money. But pennies, there are no new pennies, okay? And truthfully, I don't know why the people in control them like there are new pennies, okay? But you're being lied to. You're just listening to Glenn Beck, okay? There are no new pennies. I have seen this before. Why would they make new pennies? Who's on a penny? It's Lincoln. That's a penny, for God's sakes. I used to just draw pennies in class on like a lined piece of paper. I would just draw 94 pennies, and then I would cut them out into little circles, and I would spend them. And people will take a penny you draw if you insist it's worth a penny. They're like, it's not worth it. Just fine, it's $1. You've got $1. You've got a thing you drew with a buffalo on it. Go away. Take a candy bar. Someone said, why was Canada not in the American Revolution? Like, why did the 13 original states declare their freedom, whereas Canada was stuck under the thumb of Britain for another 100 years? And there are two reasons for this. They're both equally true. The first reason is Canada wasn't cool enough to be invited to the revolution, okay? And given that we invited Rhode Island, you can tell Canada was really uncool. Canada was Urkel uncool at the time, okay? The second reason is no one wanted Canada. That reason's still true today. Like, every 10 years at the G8, all the other G8 leaders are like, does anyone want Canada? And then, you know, the Prime Minister of Canada's looking all expectant, like, I'm going to get picked this time. But no, he never does until last. Someone else said, how do you make a citizen's arrest? I have no idea. I have watched Cops, and on Cops they said, you just say, I'm going to arrest you. And I'm like, well, what does that possibly do? Don't you need a taser? Apparently you don't need a taser to make a citizen's arrest, although I bet it makes it a lot easier. I'm never going to get to video. Here, I got a couple minutes left. 2 minutes, in fact, I'm told. Recently, the home renovation at my place continues. And I've talked about home renovation before. I'll talk about it again because apparently I can't stop fixing what I got. And after I fix it, right, it's really no better than it was at the beginning. It's just different. And I own a townhouse, so my house is in a long row of other people's houses. It's only going to last so long, right? So like 80 years from now, all those other 8 people are going to be, my house is busted. I would like to burn it down and build a new house. But my house will have been entirely replaced like 4 times by then. Because I just fix things in my house that work perfectly fine now, just different. So mine, I will have this pretty much like 8-year-old house smack in the middle of all these other houses, and then they will be like, we're going to burn all these houses down for the insurance money. And I'll be like, but it's finally the way I want it. And they'll be like, you're old, Grandpa. When you hear the alarms, try to make it to the street. And I'll be like, damn you kids, get off my front driveway because I don't know lawn. I guess I'm totally out of time for the week, or for the month, really. And for the month, I mean, y'all see this in 6 months, is my guess. It's been lovely. Next time, everyone, on Keith Explains, maybe I'll actually manage to get to video games. Or Drone Driver. Ask me about dronedriver.com in the forums, or I mentioned the nephews. Later, I am going to actually tell them about the birds and the bees. For real. Love to talk to y'all. Look, I forgot to get to my book. See here, I'll do this during the credits, okay? I was on Amazon, and it said, you might like this book. It's called The Stress Book. And I'm like, damn you, Amazon. Damn you, Amazon. And so I was like, fine, I'll buy it. It's $6. It was on sale for $6. It was only on sale for a short time, which is why I think I could sell it for $6, but most people wouldn't buy it. It is written. No, this is the person who doesn't, who is citing those that do. And I'm like, so it came in the mail today, and I opened the little envelope, and I was like, well, that's a good book. And then I thought, what do I